everyone. We're just waiting for for as many people to log on as possible before we get started. And welcome to the session today. I think most of you are used to seeing our instructions on the screen, but just a reminder to follow those instructions. And if you will, turn off your camera if you're not actively speaking, just a reminder. Do I have Brenda and Janet on the call yet?
David, this is Jeff Hawley. Brenda's having some technical issues. She's got a gentleman from IT with her now trying to help her get on.
Okay.
David, this is Belinda. Janet is also having problems connecting. Is there a number that she can call in or someone that she can connect with?
Valerie Jessica would have sent her an email. Jessica Likens would have sent her an email with a Zoom link. It would be direct to this site, but Jessica can also help if there's a call-in number. We are having the slides advanced by the Conference Direct team. So if Janet is able to just do it by phone, and then we can hopefully let her know what slide we're on.
I am in, David.
Wonderful, Janet.
It was a
Congratulations.
yeoman's effort.
All right. And I know IT is helping Brenda come in. So hopefully by the time I get to the point where Brenda will be doing her part of this presentation, she will be in. If not, perhaps she could join Jeff from his office and speak from there, Jeff Hawley, if that would work as an option.
Yeah, David, this is Jeff again. Let me go check on her and see what the current situation
Okay,
is.
she's in. I see her now.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
All right. Well, I think everyone who's participating today is very aware of how things go with technology. And you can do as many practice sessions, training sessions, and you're still going to run into technology issues on the day of the event. So thank you all very much for your patience as we were getting everybody on board, especially our speakers. And I want to welcome you. I'm David Lawrence. I'm the conference chair. And I'm joined today by Brenda Bacon and Janet Williams. Brenda and Janet, would you introduce yourselves, please?
Hello, everyone. This is Janet Williams. I am Division Director for Division of Programmatic Training with Office of Training Education Development at TA. And I will be serving the CFP this year as the lead parliamentarian. I am anxious to conduct this meeting virtually. I think that it will be as good as it is when we have been face-to-face. So looking forward to a robust discussion.
Hi, everyone. Brenda Bacon. I had some technical difficulties, but I persevered. And I am the vice chair of the Conference for Food Protection, and I'm excited to join you today to engage in this very critical discussion.
Just a reminder for those of you who are not speaking, if you'll turn off your cameras, please. And now we'll put the first slide up on the screen. So welcome you all again to the presentation on the council orientation parliamentary procedures. Many of you, if not most of you, have participated in at least one of the 6 council training sessions that were held. And much of the information should not be new to you. Some of you have a great deal of experience. Others are new. We intend on having that mix on our councils when we have our biennial meetings. That is deliberate. We want to make sure that there's a good representation of our stakeholders in the process. Next slide, please. So if you haven't heard already, the Conference for Protection is unique. Even working with the Conference Direct team, we've had to make very clear how we're unlike educational conferences that you participate in. We are a very active group. This is a meeting that's taking place, and there's a lot of work being done for this meeting. In the sense of the virtual meeting, we've had to do a lot of advanced preparation, separating out some of the events occurring this week, for example. We would normally have those during the in-person session and woven within, but we pulled those forward so we can make the process of the virtual meeting, the main event next week, much more easier to handle and get all the work done. So on this slide are 6 theme areas that are reasons why CFP is unique. There are probably many more, but these are the top 6. Representation is very important to us. So each of the councils has a composition that promotes a balance of subject matter experts. So know that those of you who are council members, alternates, consultants, you were selected as subject matter experts by the Conference for Food Protection, or in the case of the federal agencies, when the appointment of the consultants. You're appointed because you're subject matter experts and you're expected to serve in that capacity. So your preparation in advance by reviewing the issues, knowing where you stand, where you stand as far as the constituencies you represent is very important to the process and to our stakeholder groups. Equality is another thing. The parliamentary process, which Janet will be reviewing, along with the effective facilitation of the deliberation process by your council chair, that provides a structure for all to equally share their opinions and ideas. So it's a debate. Remember, it's a debate of the issue's recommended solution. It's not a debate with someone. You're debating the issue recommended solution. So always keep that in mind. Be involved. Another key importance is to be involved in the process, and that's being actively involved in the deliberation process and being a part of the committee work. If it's called for during a council session, for there to be a breakout session to form some sort of small group to work on language for a motion or to work on committee charges. We expect that involvement to take place. Focus on the issues at hand. Focus on the issue presenter. There's been a lot of time invested by the issue submitters in preparing their issue documents. And so the expectation is that you'll focus your attention when the issue is being presented on that issue presenter, and then focus on the process at hand during the deliberation process. So you know where you are throughout the process, and that the chair and parliamentarian can inform you if you do get off track. Consensus, that is what we're trying to achieve. And Brenda will get much more into consensus building, but it is a product of good faith effort to meet the interest of all stakeholders, and it's the heart of our conference. Impact is the power of this group and a group, and its ability to have an impact on the outcome through that consensus building process. And as a whole, the Conference for Protection has a powerful impact on retail food safety and consumer protection. So I hope you don't take what you're doing lightly. It is very important, a very important process. Next slide. So council members will be expected to do the following. Come prepared, do your homework. So any of you who have been in the council training sessions, you've heard it a number of times. You should be prepared by having your issues for your council study. I would also recommend that you would have done a review of the issues for the other councils. Many of the regulators, industry members have already conducted some of their own meetings where they reviewed the issues and are very familiar with them. And if you need to take time to ask for clarification about roles and responsibilities, it's now that time to reach out to your council chair if that's not addressed during this session. We need you to participate in the process. So again, be active, be a useful participant in the process, engage in the deliberation, and offer suggestions for resolution of differences. Again, we're seeking consensus. If it gets to a point where you feel like everyone's saying pretty much the same thing, you're on the same page, that is indicating to the council chair that you have built consensus. So maybe you're ready to move on the vote on a motion, for example. Be on time. That is very important for this. So we do have the ability for all the council members to join the council sessions in the green room. There's the time to join in that time period. We expect you to come on time. That time is built into the agenda. So be cognizant of when all the council sessions are to begin with on your schedule. Hopefully those are added to your agenda in Pathable, and you may have already copied them to your personal calendar. Also, there are the tentative council sessions that are built into the agenda. The council chairs will decide if those will be used. Be respectful, again, being respectful of others around the council. Don't speak over it. I'm sure the process that the council chairs will have in place to use the Zoom features is going to control that as best as possible. We also, of course, expect you to be respectful to the issue submitters. And being recognized. There is a process already in place that's been presented to you by your council leaders on how you'll be recognized by the council chair. So the expectation is across the board, that's all going to be done the same this time. And I do want to reiterate that I've said this before in other forums, that all three councils, even though Council 3 is different in its makeup, its composition, and although all three councils have different types of issues, areas of topic areas that are coming to you, all those councils, all three should be operating in the same way, because we need the outcome of our process to maintain the integrity of the CFP process and the integrity of our issues. Next slide, please. Council members will minimize the distractions. So although this is a virtual meeting, you are expected to refrain from other activities, and a quorum must be maintained. So the parliamentarians are going to be keeping touch of the quorum going throughout the process. And that will also be shown through the voting mechanism when we use that. Stay on task. Deliberations can move quickly and change course unexpectedly. So again, if you keep your focus on the virtual meeting and what's happening, then you keep your focus on the issues at hand and where you are in the deliberation process. And I'll just go to that last one real quickly. If you do get lost in the process, ask for directions. It's okay to raise your hand and ask for a point of order. And the council chair and the parliamentarian will clarify to you where the council is in that deliberation process. So everyone will be on the same page. We need that to happen for the effectiveness and efficiency of our issue deliberation process. Back up to recognizing different opinions. I think this is just reiterating that, yes, you may have a unique opinion, but being respectful of those who have a different opinion from you, or who you perceive have a different opinion. Just listening to other thoughts. It always helps us understand the other side of things, quote unquote. Challenge ideas, not individuals. Again, you're debating the issue recommended solution. You're not debating someone else on council. And oftentimes that exchange of ideas can come across as though you're debating one another, but hopefully the emphasis will always be on the recommended solution and the importance of that solution to retail food safety. The next slide will be presented by Brenda's presentation. Thank you all.
Thank you, David. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about consensus versus majority. And consensus building means achieving an overwhelming agreement. It is a decision-making process that works creatively to include all persons making the decision. So keep in mind that while a majority vote may be achieved during the council deliberations, it doesn't mean that there's a successful long-term decision that could have been reached. If a simple majority passes a vote on an issue, it might indicate to the Assembly of Delegates that the issue recommendation was made in the council and did not have strong, overwhelming support. And the Assembly of Delegates is more likely to extract that issue from the council report because there wasn't significant agreement among council members on the issue recommendation. So many of you understand the conference flow, and the issues have been submitted, as you are aware. The issues have been submitted, and there's a process whereby they're reviewed, they are accepted into the councils and assigned to either Council 1, Council 2, or Council 3 based on the content of that issue. The councils, which will occur next week, will be deliberating the issues. The 3 outcomes from each of the issues are to be recommended to take no action, and there has to be a description of why that vote was put forward. Recommend that the issue is accepted as submitted, or it is recommended that the issue is accepted as amended. And that's what your council deliberations are going to be doing. Once the issues are deliberated in council and they have all come up with a recommended solution, then they will go to the Assembly of Delegates. The Assembly of Delegates will then agree with the recommended action, or they will not. And they'll bring it forth and once the issues have gone through the Assembly of Delegates, they will be shared with the appropriate federal agency. Next slide, please. So there's some tools for success during the deliberations. Keep an open mind. Differences of opinion on these issues are natural and they're expected, but listen to other members' reactions and consider what they have to say very carefully before you press your point. Keeping an open mind is one of the fundamentals for discussions in councils. Be creative in compromising, providing compromising options. It's okay to think outside the box and to look at the issue that's been presented and is being deliberated through a different lens. Recognize when minor differences might be overcome by finding the middle ground and seeking compromise. Use positive language to promote resolution instead of discord. For instance, you might want to say, this would be more agreeable to me if, and continue on with your thought, versus saying, I want this to happen this way. So compromise is really critical as well. Keeping that in mind during your deliberations and being open-minded is fundamental. Keep the process flowing. Don't be repetitive. If it's already been stated around the table and you have nothing new to add to that position, offer a simple statement of support only. Don't rehash the same topic over and over to express your support for an issue. We can take straw votes to assess where the group is, and your council leadership will allow you to do that through an easy voting mechanism that they will describe with the council orientation. Consider tabling an issue to allow time to negotiate and prepare additional language outside of council. Sometimes issues are deliberated and they need to be taken, put aside, if you will, and tabled so that maybe a smaller group can come up with more amenable language to the council members. So it's okay to table an issue with the intent of coming back to it with additional information that might foster support for that issue and move it forward. And you can offer to be on the group that gets pulled aside, if you will, on a tabled issue to come up with proposed language when there's a break or in between council sessions. And focus on finding a solution rather than creating committees. Go ahead and make decisions if it's all possible. Major in-depth issues might need a committee, but many issues can be resolved through deliberations. Understanding that there's time constraints, but just keep in mind that each issue should be deliberated equally and come up with a resolution or a recommended solution that's amenable to the council members. Keep in mind that the recommendation to create a committee must also include establishing specific charges for that committee. And these charges for an assigned committee should be reasonable and should be achievable in the 2-year time period under which that committee work would be done. Always remember that those charges really have to be something that can be delivered upon and addressed during committee work. Next slide, and I'll turn it over to Janet.
Well, thank you, Brenda. Thank you, David. This is Janet. And we're going to talk a little bit about the parliamentary procedures as we go forward. We have almost 16 hours ahead of us for council deliberations. 105 issues are on the table. That's 34, 36 issues per council. While it may seem daunting, I think with good order and a good flow, we'll be able to get through those. Next slide. Hello? You all able to? Thank you. So one of the things that you will receive in your packets, or you should have already received, is one of the things the CFP does, puts together as a rule of engagement. And this is just a cheat sheet that you can have by you to kind of understand all of the gobbledygook that the parliamentarians are providing to you. The parliamentarian's job on the council is to help provide order for the process. It is not to get into the middle of the discussions. It is not to impact that, but it is to make sure that we have order from what we are doing. There is one parliamentarian for each council. The parliamentarian for Council 1 is Belinda Clifton. For Council 2 is Michael Ante. And for Council 3 is Brent Higgs. I will be operating between all three of them as a backup and as a lead parliamentarian for the delegate council assembly of delegates master vote. We have been working behind the scenes to make sure that our processes are stable and uniform so that each of the councils are operating in a uniform manner. This is one of the documents that we are using, that we use as a basis. And I'm just going to go over a couple of these items so that you can understand what they are, so you know what you're asking for. And David talked a little bit about this. One of them is point of order. One of the things that a point of order basically is just to ask questions for clarity. You don't need a vote. It's the chair's decision whether to do that, because we want people to know what's going on. We don't want you in a cloudy fog throughout the proceedings, and then when it's time to vote, you're like, I don't know what anybody said or did. We would rather ask for that clarity during the process than be confused throughout the process. That's okay. But if we continue to be confused, you might get your council chair pulling you to the side and say, you're going to have to pay just a little bit more attention so that we're not bogged down with the point of order all the time. But it is okay to ask those questions. Point of information, on the other hand, is when you need additional information. The chair usually repeats what it is we're voting on. They're very good about that so that everybody is clear what the action is on the table that they want you to take a look at. So point of information is that you need additional information. Point of clarity is like where are we in the process. So we had a friendly motion, we had a vote, any of those things. Again, you don't need a vote and you can ask the chair for that information. A point of personal privilege is just that. It's cold in here. The temperature is wrong. Can we get people to speak up? I can barely hear someone. There's a siren going off in the background. That's point of privilege, meaning that there's something going on that is providing a distraction that we need to take an opportunity to take a look at. Call for recess is an intermission. You understand what that is. To recess requires a majority vote. So it's not just a voice vote. Suspend the rules. This is one that we do need to talk about. At the beginning of the council proceedings, they will normally have a motion to bring all the issues to the table and take those issues in sequential order. Once we vote to do that, anything that happens outside of that requires us to suspend the rules. And what that is, it says, I know we agreed on this over here, but I'd like to offer an alternative for this item. I'd like to suspend the rules and hear issue 5 right after we talk about issue 22. I'd like to suspend the rules and combine issue 22 and 47. They're there. And there's a process that the parliamentarians will go through to make sure that, of course, that process follows what it needs to. But we can't just jump to taking an action, transferring an item, combining an item, taking anything out of order. The process is suspend the rules. So your chair may come back to you and say, thank you for that recommendation, but is there a motion on the floor to suspend the rules to do X, Y, and Z? The motion is there, yes, because everybody, remember, we have to have consensus and agreement that that's what we're going to be doing. Everyone agrees on it, and then we take the action that needs to be taken. We talk about making a motion, and this is the most important aspect out there. And a motion is nothing but this is what I'd like to recommend happen. I'd like to make a motion to accept the issue as submitted. And there is a second, somebody has to agree with me. And then there is a discussion. Now we can all discuss, and then there's a vote. That's really the process, the basics, the backbone of all of the work that we're going to do. There are offshoots to that, but there are backbones to that, okay? Let me see, I'm trying to look at some other items that I want to take a look at. Calling the question is usually puts an end to the debate. It puts an end to the discussion. There's no second, there's no nothing, there's a vote. It says, we've talked about this for the last 59 minutes. Let's move on, let's call the question. And we take a vote and we move on. If that fails, then discussion continues. If it passes, then we're back to where that motion was on the floor that we were talking about. That's why the parliamentarian is there, keeping track of all of the things that are going on in that process to make sure that we know what's happening. So again, this is a cheat sheet for you to be able to use. Not that we want you to be parliamentarians. That's an issue of too many cooks in the kitchen. I think that we need to understand where we are so you understand how the rules will impact the process for you. Next slide. Again, this is one of the operations that we have. It just talks about the different councils, the 3 councils, what we're doing. And I go back and I reiterate what Brenda said. The 3 motions that come out of here. Accept as written, accept as amended, or no action. And remember, our council deliberations are recommendations. Those recommendations go to the Assembly of Delegates who make the final decisions. So we need to give them as much information and as possible so that they can make the best determinations when they vote as possible. Next slide. So I'm gonna go, since we're in a virtual format, this is usually very easy to do when we're face-to-face, but in a virtual format, our voting is gonna be just a little different. There are votes that we will take using the meeting pulse, which is the electronic platform that CFP has been working with Conference Direct on. And then there are those voice votes that we typically would have done about when we were in person. And we're going to use the Zoom reaction buttons. Everyone has gone through the training. They know where those Zoom buttons are, and we're going to use those for those voice votes. The green check mark will indicate an A, an affirmative. The X will indicate a nay or a no. And the abstain is the no vote that I have a conflict of interest, so I'm going to back off of that. Those will not be used using that meeting platform. We're going to try this process out. We know it's going to work well, but if we have to go to every vote being into the meeting pulse platform to make sure that everyone is getting an opportunity to vote and their voice is being heard, then we will. But hopefully, we all have done our homework. We've looked and done what we need to do. We know where these buttons are, and we can use them. And your chair will indicate to you when you will be using these reaction buttons, when you won't, when you need to take them down, when you need to put your voice to the table. Next slide. So here's some of the things that may come up with the meeting that won't be in the official meeting. Take a break, a motion to take a recess for X number of minutes. They may say all those in favor indicate green, yes, all those opposed indicate X, and those abstain, stop talking because we have to go do something else. But here's some of the ones that don't really require a lot of vote, and some of these we may move to the meeting post because we may think that they are so germane to the discussion that we need to have a recorded opportunity to record who voted what, when, where, and how. And this gets to be important for those things that issues that we want to reconsider. CFP has a process that they use to reconsider a vote, bringing it back the next, let me figure out, let me get to my notes for a minute. I want to make sure to reconsider a motion, bringing it back to next, to reconsider an issue. CFP allows that to happen, but it has to happen the next day. So you have to be very mindful of those issues that you are making a motion to reconsider, and that request to reconsider has to come from those people that were in the affirmative, from those that voted yes to reconsider. So that those are the ones that say, yeah, we got the vote passed, but I don't think we really reached consensus. I'd like for us to reconsider this, talking with our partners and making sure that we come to a true consensus that meets the needs of everyone. So let's take this back to the table because we felt like that while we got a yes vote, it was kind of divisive. So that's one of the things I want to make sure. It requires a next day for that to happen. So you have to be very mindful of that time and that opportunity. And then adjourn to end the meeting or to adjourn is a second that's needed and a majority vote. Next slide. And these are some of the major motions that we're going to be using the meeting post for. Those three final recommendations: to accept as submitted, to accept as amended, or to take no action. And the chair will indicate which ones that that we will which process we will be using to vote. Zoom reaction buttons or using the meeting pulse. The chair will always be able to provide you directions on what we are doing for that period of time. Next slide. Again, Brenda talked about this for reasons for no action. We want to indicate why we take no action. The issue was the issue submitter asked to withdraw the issue, or is adequately addressed, or the council could not reach consensus. Again, these are recommendations, and those recommendations go to the Assembly of Delegates to be able to make a determination on how they will act. They will either agree with the council recommendations or they will disagree with those council recommendations. If they disagree with that council recommendation, then it goes, the no action that's disagreed with goes to the CFP board, executive board, for further action and activity. Next slide. We'll talk about this process when we get to the Assembly of Delegates and the process for voting. I'm going to get here, but I see that there were a lot of questions in the chat. And David, I don't know how you want to handle those, but I see a lot of people chiming in to answer parliamentarian questions. And I would hope that if it was just the 3 parliamentarians answer, we're safe. But if not, I do want the opportunity to make sure that what people were saying is right.
And I've been watching that, and replies seem to be accurate. I was glad to see the council chairs and Belinda did address the question. I just want quickly, before we get to Q&A and what's in the chat, I just want to let everybody, I think there was in the chat, someone said, what can we get the rules of engagement? Well, a reply I think from Joe Graham is it's in the document live, very unpathable. So what I copied and pasted here on this slide is those documents that would most likely be of value to council members. And for these documents, there's a link to the document on the CFP website. So there's a guide to the CFP issue process. That's actually meant to help members who are not familiar with our process, but it also iterates the where Brenda went through the flow chart. It provides a summary of that issue process in words versus in a flow chart. The editing and issuing council, that is a document that you should all have at your side when you're, again, working through the edits to a recommended solution. It also has the information about no actions. The rules of engagement document that's there, and the biennial meeting information manual for the 2020 biennial meeting that of course is just more information about the actual meeting itself. It's one of our governing documents, but it's specific to this biennial meeting.
David, I have one last
Go
comment.
ahead, Janet. Yes.
And this is my comment. The parliamentarians and the councils and the executive board have worked very hard to try to make this virtual meeting as similar as we possibly could to the face-to-face meeting. The goal for us as parliamentarians is to make sure that we provide order to the process and we maintain that order. I want to caution all of our committees and council members and everyone that we don't use those quote, quote, rules to disrupt the consensus process. There are some adjustments that we have made in how we're going to operate and or interpret certain parliamentary procedures to meet the virtual environment. So allow your council chairs and your parliamentarians to guide that process rather than us, go back to the way we used to do it or the way I know it was done. We may have had to make an adjustment to that to meet the virtual platform and the virtual environment that we're working in. So I caution you to look to your council chairs, your vice chairs, and your parliamentarians to understand that process and manage that. And if you have questions about how something was done or why a process or a decision was made, reach out to the chair, reach out to the parliamentarian for that discussion, either offline or in chat or something, that they can certainly help you with that. But I just want to put that caution out there.
Okay, everyone, we do have some time for Q&A for some questions. Like I said, I have been looking at what's in the chat. I've seen a lot of you. There are many of you who are experienced with the process, and obviously you've been replying to questions. We will be able to share. I'm going to ask the council chairs to send this presentation to all of their members, alternates, and consultants. Know that this session is also being recorded. I see that Joe Graham made a recommendation to post this presentation in the document, or put that in the document library. We'll work with Conference Direct to see what we can do to make that happen. Joe, I think that's a compliment to this presentation. Appreciate that very much. Are there any other questions? Please feel free to raise your hand or. Okay, there's a question from Ann Johnson about the green room. Green room is not the same as a breakout room. The green room is the pre-session room, just like you were going on Oprah or something. It's the room that you go into, the people who are going to be the primaries participate in that process. So that the purpose of the green room is so that everybody can come in who should be present for that meeting. So all the council members, all those people should be in that room, that council session before the go live time when it goes out for all audience members to attend. So the expectation is you'll all be there. We can get an idea. The parliamentarian can say, you have a quorum here, let's roll with the process. So that's the idea of the green room. Glenn, Ian's following up with the question about how do you access that? It will, if you have the session card up on your screen, it will eventually show join meeting. If you're one of the people who's supposed to be in there, you'll see a join meeting come up, and you will just click on that and that will open that room for you, that 20 minutes in advance. The recorded sessions available. Could I have one of the Conference Direct members state where the well, Deanna, the recorded sessions are currently available through Pathable if you click on the tab. So yesterday's sessions, if you click on those session tab, those cards, once it opens, the video is there to play. So it'll load and play for those sessions. After that, we plan to post the information to the sessions, I believe, through this, if we're able, in another means, perhaps even this Conference Food Protection website, but we have to work on that process. So give us some time to work through that. Okay, Sharon, I think I've caught up with the chat room. Sharon?
Thank you, David. Since we have a little time, there's many council members on this call, this training session, and I will tell you what was very helpful for me and might be helpful for all of us is to have Janet lead us through an example and what she did with us when we had some calls with her as far as bringing the issues to the table, then the issue is presented, and then there's a discussion, and then there might be some amendment. Well, it was, the original motion might have been for the issue to be accepted as submitted, but then we start amending, and then that needs to be voted on. So I just wonder, Janet did a really nice job of saying, okay, here's an example of how that might look, because I think that's where people get a little confused. I'll leave it up to you if you think that's a good idea, but Janet did such an amazing job just taking us through an example scenario. I know they're all different, but that way as council members, they understand how that flows. Just thoughts if that might be good use of a little time here. Thanks.
I don't have a problem if David is okay with it.
I'm okay with that, Janet. Please do.
Okay. Well, thank you, Sharon, for the high praise. I hope I can live up to it. But one of the things we did is that we said, so when we have all of these issues that are coming to the council, and you have your shirt and your tie on and you're sitting there and you're ready to be important. So what do we need to do? We need to get the issues to the floor. So we're going to say, and the chair will start this process to say something like, I'd like to entertain a motion, because the chair can't make the motion, but the council members can. He say, I would like to entertain them. I'd like to entertain a motion, or is there a motion on the floor? Because we're asking for input to receive the issues as they are received and hear them in sequential order. Then someone would say, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we accept these issues as they were received. And the wording is important. We're not saying accept it as submitted. We're not saying accept it. We're saying we got them and we accept them. We received them. Now let's start talking about them. There's a second and a vote. Everybody votes yes. Then it allows the presenter to come to the floor to say, okay, we have issue 2-3. Let's start talking about it. So David comes to the floor and he said, thank you, council. I'd like to start talking about issue 2-3. I think it's very important that we have a car, and I think that we need to paint that car. It is a color that I think is unacceptable to the organization, and I think we'd like to paint that car blue. Is there a second? And Sharon says, I second that motion. And so then is there a discussion? Now the council can discuss the validity and the issue that's presented, which is painting the car blue. So Keith says, well, I'm okay with painting the car blue, but no, let's go back. So Keith says, I vote that we take no action on this issue because I think it's an ineffective use of our resources and our time to paint the car. That's just a waste of money. And it's silence. There's not a second, there's not a vote. So that issue dies. People are saying, you know, he's just a cheap wad. We're not going to listen to him. We're gonna at least entertain the idea of the discussion of painting the car. So the chair would say, there's a motion on the floor, there was a second, and we're in the middle of the discussion to have an opportunity to paint the car blue. Then Sharon says, well, I'd like to offer a friendly amendment. I think that we should paint the car, but I don't like any blue. I'd like to recommend that we paint the car navy blue. And then the chair would say, is the person that made the motion to paint the car blue, are you okay with that? They say, yeah, okay, navy blue, whatever. The second, are you okay with that? I can live with navy blue too. Then we have accepted, we have the friendly amendment on the table, that everybody is in agreement to the friendly amendment, and it is to have the opportunity to discuss the friendly amendment, not to vote on it, because we haven't done that yet. There's a second, and then there's a discussion. People are discussing about the friendly amendment of the blue, navy blue. It gets done, and we all agree to amend the language that we like the color of the car to be navy blue. All the while, the scribe is taking all this information. Now we have to go back and say, is there a motion on the floor to accept the issue as amended? Because we have an amendment to the original issue. So there are two things that have to happen. You have to accept the amended language, and then you have to accept the issue as amended with that language that's on the screen that the scribe has. That would have a motion, it would have a second, it would have a vote, and then the issue would either pass, not pass, or do something else. If in the process of that discussion, and the second friendly amendment would come back and say, well, you said navy blue, but I think navy blue is too close to a dark color. And, you know, we need to be seen in the hills of the country. So I think we need to vote, make it pink. And so we have a second friendly amendment to the first friendly amendment. Again, if you allow the parliamentarians to follow that process, because you can have those many amendments before a vote happens, because they're all happening in the discussion session and the discussion phrase. Again, so if somebody wants to paint the car pink, they would go back to the person that made the first friendly amendment, are you okay with it? Whatever, just get the car painted. The person that seconded, are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. Now for the folks that originally asked for the amendment, for the issue, are you okay with painting the car, painting the car and painting it pink? Yeah, I'm okay with it. Is Mr. Second, are you okay with it? No, I don't like pink. I don't like that color. So I'm not agreeing with that. That dies because you don't have a second for it. So I hope that kind of helps a little bit. The parliamentarian will keep track of those issues for you, but what we want you to understand, you have to vote to accept the amended language, and words are important, and the order of those words are important. And then you have to vote to accept the issue as amended, which would include that new language. And I'm going to stop there and ask if there are any questions for clarification. I know somebody has a question. We have too many type A regulators out there not to have one.
We have a hand up from Keith Jackson, one of our council chairs, and then Peter Sheehan.
Yes.
Hey, Janet. You know, I love the painting the car example. Could we use CFP language to walk through happens when an issue, a motion is made to accept an issue as submitted, and then during the course of discussion, it's determined through that discussion that the issue needs to be amended. What happens to that original motion to accept as submitted and how it's replaced by the motion to accept as amended? Can you just walk through that just real quick?
Yes. Let's see if I can answer Peter's question before we get there, because that's going to be a little engaging. Peter, did you have a question? I think you're still on.
Yes, I just was wondering, is there such a thing as an unfriendly amendment?
Not at CFP. We're always friendly. What the friendly amendment does is modifies the Robert Rules of Order language. An amendment is just an opportunity to have an alternate option on the table. We use the language friendly because we're all friends here. It's just an opportunity to put that different language on the table. And that's why you have to have a second and a vote for it, because if people are not agreeing to it, then it becomes that unfriendly amendment.
Thank you.
So to answer Keith's question, we have an issue on the table to accept as submitted. And Keith, help me if I say it wrong. Accept an issue as submitted. There is a second to accept that issue as submitted and a discussion. During the discussion, there is a request to, I'd like to offer that friendly or unfriendly amendment that we'd like to add X, Y, and Z language to that original issue. So now we're off on a divergent path talking about the language. Once we agree to that language, then that language comes back to the table. And now we are going to take a look at the issue as amended. And what Keith is referring to is that many people think that you have the issue as submitted on the table, and then you have an issue as amended on the table, and you got two issues on the table, and you don't. You have the issue that was submitted diverge with new language to become the issue as amended. So it kind of takes the place of it, because it is now the issue as it is amended, because we've agreed to this new language out there. So you never have two issues on the table at the same time, like a dangling participle. Does that help answer the question, Keith?
That's exactly what I needed you to say, Janet, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
And he didn't prompt me. I see David, is any more questions?
I see Courtney and then Adam.
Yes. How can I help?
So would that be the only way to get to accepted as amended is either through a no action discussion or a accept as submitted discussion? Or could you start right off as accept as amended if someone has amended language?
You cannot start with accept as amended because we don't have the language of the amendment. You
Got it.
have to agree and vote on the language first. And that's what converts an issue as accepted, as submitted. That language converts it to amended. So you have to introduce the language. Remember, we had the navy blue card, then we went to the pink card, and then we went to teal and back. So you have to agree on that language, and then it becomes the new issue as it was amended. I hope that answered your question.
Go ahead, Adam.
Go ahead, Adam.
Hello, Ms. Jackson. How are you?
You know what I was going to say? I had to catch myself.
Oh,
you know the
Williams, yeah. All right. Freudian slip there, I suppose. So anyway, question on this, because I've seen this many, many times, and yet somehow I'm drawing a blank. So, you mentioned a specific language to get it under consideration, and I was looking at the information manual to try to get myself up to speed here as we prep. And it says, we entertain a motion in a second to bring the issue to the floor for discussion. Is that where do we use that specific language that you use to get it to discussion? Do we have to vote on bringing it for discussion before we can then move to?
No, that is the language. Council is starting. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. Everybody's there. They got the coffee on. They're all spiffy and ready to go. We got to have stuff to talk about. So we got to bring it to the floor. We got to bring it to discussion. That's the language that gets it out of CFP's hands into the council hands to say, now we have it all in our hands to be able to talk and deliberate. So that is the motion to get that to the table for discussion. And then everything flows from there. So that initial discussion, you can only have really 2 motions with an issue. So you bring up issue 2-3 and the presenter presents its issue to give you an overview of what it is. There's only 2 motions that the council can make. Accept it as it's submitted, which means we agree with everything in here or we like it, or no action. You can only go to the accepted as amended after that discussion when you're putting new language in play. I hope that helped everyone.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm going to trust, as David mentioned in the chat, I'm going to trust the process, and I'm sure that there'll be a lot of grace given as we try to work through it.
Absolutely. We will make, and that's one thing I will want to say, we will make mistakes and we will make plenty of mistakes, but just the parliamentarians are there to support that and to help manage the process so that we maintain the integrity of what CFP is looking for. It is not going to be perfect, but if we make sure that people have a voice, which is the goal of the deliberation, the goal of the process, then I think that we're all going to do okay. And we'll work through this. It will be challenging, but we'll get through it. Other questions, David?
Yes, Larry, and then Larry, could I briefly just answer one question from Anna Scarabin? Is there a place in writing to go through this process is her question. Anna, we do not have this process written down. The reference that I think Belinda may have made to on one of the council training sessions about a flow chart they have, it may be a tool that the parliamentarians use, but I think if you've ever sat through a session and you've basically scribbled, where am I in this process? To try to convert that into something that would work across every type of situation in the council process, this deliberation process would be very hard. So the best way is to try to get in your mind that layout, and it'll be, again, as Janet says, if you do get lost in a process, point of order, ask for where you are in the process, and the council chair and the parliamentarian will help you find your place. Larry, please.
And I would also,
I'm sorry.
And I will also reiterate that, and the executive directors can correct me, we don't want everybody on the council being a mini parliamentarian.
That's right.
It's a challenging process, and we have to keep track of everything. We need you to focus on the discussions and focus on the deliberations and focus on there. We're happy to share our notes. We're happy to share our flows charts that we create to show where we are, but I don't think you can do both things at the same time and do them well. So trust us.
We have one more minute, so Larry.
Yeah, David, I don't have a question. I just wanted to say thank you to you and Brenda, to Dave McSwain, the executive board, what the chairs and vice chairs and Janet's team are about to do. It's been a crazy, right, CFP. It's going to be tough, I'm sure, but your leadership, David's been really impressive to me in your calm demeanor and getting us to where we're getting. And so thank you for what you guys have done. And we look forward to what I'm sure will be a crazy CFP, but we'll get through it. So thank you.
Thank you, Larry. It's been a privilege to be in this role with the conference. All right, everyone. I think we're at the end of our time. I really, again, appreciate all of you participating. The session is recorded. You can find it in the session tab in Pathable. We'll look for alternate means of sharing that, but the best way is to go in through Pathable and view the recording. The council chairs will be sharing the presentation slides with you. Thank you very much.